supposed to do with the infrastructure plays here. Take Martin Marietta Materials, MLM, the maker of aggregates, concrete, asphalt, and other basic materials used in all sorts of construction and infrastructure projects. After Trump's surprise election victory, Martin Marietta Materials stock caught fire as everyone expected to get a major infrastructure bill, one of the president's big campaign promises, right? In the last month, though, the stock's pulled back from its highs, and that's in part because it's becoming apparent that a big infrastructure spending package could be a little tougher sell than we thought for Republican-controlled Congress, which begs the question, can Martin Marietta Materials keep working its way higher like it did today, even without maybe so much help from Washington? Let's dig deep with Ward Nye, President, Chairman, CEO of Martin Marietta Materials, find out more about how this company's doing and what it's up to. Ward, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I haven't seen it. Have a seat, please. The CEO say this. It's the first one. For this year, maybe in ages, our overall outlook is the strongest we have ever seen.
Isn't that remarkable?
I mean, tell our viewers, because almost everyone says that something's tepid or they're worried or they're concerned. That's an amazing statement.
Well, keep in mind, we went so far down when the housing fell off, when non-res went away, and we didn't have a highway bill. So now what's come back, if you think about it, we actually have a highway bill that's multi-year. Housing's much better than it's been. It still has a long way to go. And we feel like in our markets, non-residential is going to be good. So if we rack those three things up, it's a big piece of our volume.
Now, it's very clear, this aggregates business, you had a couple of states that are just, you talked about North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Colorado.
Yeah.
Now, are they just early adopters and we're going to see it from everybody, or are those special situations?
Those are important states for us because of the position that we have in those states. Okay. So we have leading positions there. It lets us pull back on our costs. We can run our business very effectively there. At the same time, the Southeast, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, were states that in the recession fell disproportionately low. Right. And now we're seeing them come back in a very strong way. So if we look at population demographics there, they're good. Okay. If we're looking at job recovery, it's quite good.
Well, you're more tied in than most. Can you tell me where you think the infrastructure bill really is? Because we know Trump thinks he's got to double the amount of money. He's talking about $550 billion. It's not going to go away. Something's going to happen even bigger than what you're talking about. Where are we?
I think two things probably happen. Number one, I think this year we're going to look more toward tax reform. Okay. And I think if we see tax reform come, and they've talked about August timeframe to get that done, right, we're likely to see something happens that allows continued investment in infrastructure. I think as we move into 18, we can look at something larger than that. Importantly, nothing in our outlook right now portends anything like that this year. I
think that's really important for people to know that through all of your presentations, it's not in the numbers.
That's correct.
It's really not in the numbers. Similarly, what's not in the numbers and no one even talks about is the possibility that if there is a wall between Texas and Mexico, you are the company that would provide the ingredients.
Well, Texas is our largest state by revenue.
Right.
We're exceptionally well positioned in that state. And importantly, when you get near the Gulf or other parts of Texas, we have the ability to come in with stone by water, with stone by rail. We also have cement in that marketplace and ready mix in that marketplace. So in Texas, but particularly in that Texas triangle, we're the largest producer of aggregate, cement, and ready-mix concrete.
Has anyone from government contacted Martin Marietta about specs for the wall?
Nothing like that's happening.
No?
No.
All right. Well, I always got to ask. I mean, you never know. You did talk about how the Permian matters to Martin Marietta.
Well, the Permian matters because we're starting to see some comeback in that Permian. But really, if we're looking more at the Eagle Ford, the Haynesville, the Barnett, some of those actually could matter even more. But part of what we're seeing right now, if we go back 4 years ago, we sold 7.5 million tons to different shale oil plays across the United States. Last year, about 1.5 million. We clearly think that that can see at least a doubling over the next several years if oil stays above $50 a barrel.
What I found shocking was that the biggest user might be these LNG plants. That sounds like the largest construction projects in the country.
They're remarkably
Tell
large
me about
projects.
them, because I don't think people understand how broad they are.
Well, let's think of it in these terms. If we look at what's going on in the Gulf right now in LNG, there are about 6 projects in varying degrees of building right now, 17 and 18. If we rack them up, it's probably about $47 billion worth of activity. So if we look at what that means on aggregates, it's about 17 million tons of aggregates, about 1.6 million cubic yards of ready-mix concrete. These are enormous multi-year projects.
Now, can you compare them to all when an interstate is widened? Which is more important?
They'll both be important. When you use about 38,000 tons of stone per mile per interstate mile. Right. But if we're looking at these large projects, again, if we're back to the notion they will need aggregates, they will need ready mix, they will need cement in that Gulf area of the United States, we're particularly well suited to supply that.
I learn something every time I read your stuff. You're talking about how what you really want to pay attention to is what UPS and FedEx are saying about how bad our roads are. They're bad, aren't they?
Well, they are bad, and they're the users. They're the people who are out riding on those roads every day. They can tell you what it's costing their business in time. They can tell you what it's costing their business in maintenance and repair, and the numbers are pretty staggering.
If the government were to do a 50-year savings bond for make America's roads great again, do you think that's just me dreaming? I've been proposing that now for a year.
I don't think it's dreaming, because I think this is something that the American people want to see. It's a dire need across the United States. It will put people back to work, and I think it's something that could really be very helpful to the country right now.
One last question. Martin Marietta has the best buyback I have seen on the New York Stock Exchange. Is that continuing, or do you think that the stock is so high, maybe like Warren Buffett says, you got to wait for it to come in?
You know what? It is continuing, but we've also said our best first dollar is spent on the right acquisition. Not any acquisition, the right acquisition.
Well, Martin Marietta has been a big win for us, and I think it's going to continue to do so. That's Ward Nye, Chairman, President, and CEO of Martin Marietta. And I've got to tell you, if you do get an infrastructure bill or a wall, this is the #1 stock to own. Mad Money's back in for the break. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.